1 second, that's all it takes. 1 second for your entire life to just change. On January 15th, 2012, at approximately 2,500 meters on Aguja Saint-Exupéry, a 2,558-meter granite spire in Argentina's Fitzroy Massif, a 29-year-old Canadian climber named Carile Norman was living her dream in Patagonia. She was doing everything right, everything. She had the skills, the experience, the planning. She was with a trusted partner. The weather was actually good, for once. And then, in 1 second, everything changed. This is the story of how the mountain decided her fate. Before we talk about what happened, you need to understand who Carile was. Because this wasn't just some reckless thrill seeker chasing Instagram photos or whatever. This was a woman who had every reason to understand the mountains better than most. Bryn Carlyle Norman was born in Calgary, Alberta in 1982, in the foothills of the Canadian Rockies, and honestly, her life was marked by tragedy long before Patagonia. When she was just 6 years old, her mother died in a hiking accident, not even a technical climb, just one of those things that happens in the mountains. By the time Carile was 11, her father had crashed his bike and never woke up. So yeah, Carile knew loss. She knew that the mountains could take everything from you. But here's the thing, she didn't turn away from them, she turned toward them. Wild places, her friends said, gave her solace. The mountains became where she felt most alive, most herself. By her late 20s, Carile was thriving in Canmore, Alberta, that small mountain town at 1,400 meters elevation where climbers are basically the local celebrities. She was a highly trained yoga instructor, she wrote these sharp, funny blog posts for Highline magazine, and she contributed insightful articles to the Canadian Alpine Journal. She was just loved, you know? People describe her as this bright spark of energy, disciplined but also someone who'd crack open a bottle of scotch with friends and laugh till midnight. In November 2011, at the Banff Mountain Film Festival, Carile and her climbing partner Cian Brinker won the John Lachlan Memorial Award, which is funding specifically designed to support ambitious mountain adventures. They decided on Patagonia. They were keen on attempting a new route on the southwest face of Aguja Befida, an imposing and rarely climbed granite tower. Before they left, their friends threw them a send-off dinner. Sharon Wood, a Canadian mountain guide and the first North American woman to summit Mount Everest, which she accomplished on May 20, 1986 via the difficult West Ridge from Tibet without Sherpa support, was there. She said they all felt so excited, so nurturing, we wanted to give them air beneath their wings. Nobody knew it would be the last time they would see Carile alive. Okay, so let's talk about Patagonia for a second, because if you've never been there or never really looked into what it's like, you need to understand this place is different. The local indigenous Tehuelche people called one of the peaks Chaltén, which means smoking mountain, not because it's a volcano, but because the 3,405-meter summit of Cerro Fitzroy is literally always covered in clouds, always. It looks like it's smoking. The weather there can go from clear blue skies to hurricane-force winds exceeding 130 kilometers per hour in minutes. I'm talking winds so strong they've blown contact lenses out of people's eyes. Winds that can literally knock you flat on your back. Climbers describe it as a place that feels alive, almost hostile. The rock is unstable, the ice melts and refreezes every single day. These freeze-thaw cycles constantly loosen the cliffs. Rockfall isn't rare, it's frequent and unpredictable. You're literally climbing while the mountain is falling apart around you. And here's the kicker, there's no large professional rescue service based in El Chaltén. Rescues are largely volunteer-led, sometimes by climbers with recreational experience who have to risk their own lives to help you. Helicopters are often unable to fly because of the weather, and even when conditions allow it, getting to someone high on these peaks is incredibly difficult. In Patagonia, self-rescue is basically your only option. If you can't get yourself down, the chance that a volunteer rescue team will successfully reach you and evacuate you off the mountain is, according to official accident reports, extremely slim. Carile and Cian knew all of this. They'd done their homework. They understood the risks. On Sunday, January 15, 2012, Carile and Cian decided to do a warm-up climb before their big new route attempt on Befida. The plan was to climb something they knew, something to get their systems dialed in, their movement smooth. It's believed they chose a route called Last Gringo Standing, graded 6CA1 in the French system, or roughly 5.11 in the American YDS scale, on Aguja Saint-Exupéry. It's a roughly 13-pitch climb. That means 13 rope lengths of technical climbing, covering approximately 500 meters of vertical granite. Difficult, but totally within their skill level. They'd climbed harder stuff before. The weather was good, actually good, and in Patagonia, that's like, you don't waste it, you go. They started climbing, pitch after pitch, everything was going smoothly. They were approximately 9 pitches up, just 1 pitch away from the false summit, when Carlyle was belaying Cian. That means she was anchored to the wall with pitons and carabiners managing the rope as he climbed above her. And then, a rock fell. Not a pebble, a rock, big enough that when it struck Carlyle directly in the head, it shattered her helmet instantly. She never saw it coming. 1 second she was focused on her partner climbing above her, the next second she was unconscious. Cian descended immediately. He found her on the ledge, helmet destroyed, not responding. He secured her to the anchor with fixed ropes and tied her in so she wouldn't fall, and then he sat with her for approximately 2 hours. He sat there on that freezing ledge at over 2,500 meters, holding her, checking for any sign that she might wake up, talking to her, hoping, but she didn't wake up. Eventually, late on January 15th, Cian had to make the hardest decision of his life. He couldn't stay there forever. She needed help, real help, medical help. He had to go get it. So he descended alone through the night down that technical 13-pitch route in the dark, knowing that every minute counted, knowing that Carlyle was up there, secured to that ledge, unconscious. He reached the town of Chaltén late on Monday afternoon, January 16th. Real quick, if you're finding this story as powerful as I did when I first learned about it, just hit that like button. And if you want more stories about the mountains, the people who climb them, and the thin line between dreams and danger, subscribe. I'd love to have you here. If you've been somewhere that felt truly indifferent to your existence, let me know in the comments below. I'm curious. Alright, so what happened next is where this gets even harder. The moment Cian reported the accident to Dr. Carile Norman, Chaltén's local doctor and rescue coordinator, people started trying to help. Dr. Kodo immediately contacted a Red Bull helicopter that was in the area, filming Austrian climber David Lama on Sierra Torre for a film project. On Monday, January 16th, the Red Bull helicopter made recon flights but could not get close enough to assess Carlyle's condition. On Tuesday morning, January 17th, at first light, the helicopter ferried a small team of elite international climbers to the base of Saint-Exupery. This wasn't just any rescue team. This was Rolando Garibotti, an Argentine-American alpinist who's one of the world's foremost experts on Patagonian climbing, and Colin Haley, an American known for his speed ascents in the region. Both men are recognized by the American Alpine Club for their contributions to alpine climbing. The plan was for them to climb an adjacent route and traverse over to reach Carlyle's position at approximately 2,500 meters. They climbed all day into the early evening, pushing themselves to exhaustion, covering hundreds of meters of technical terrain. But the weather turned rapidly, the way it always does in Patagonia. Winds accelerated to dangerous speeds. They had to stop. They had no choice. On Wednesday, January 18th, conditions were still too dangerous. The winds were savage. Nobody could get up there. Conditions were similar the next day too, on January 19th. Finally, on Friday, January 20th, 5 days after the accident, the weather cleared enough for the Red Bull helicopter to fly close. They got eyes on the ledge where Cian had secured Carlyle with fixed ropes, but she wasn't there. At first, rescuers were hopeful. Maybe she had woken up and started descending on her own. Maybe she was sheltering somewhere lower on the mountain. But then, around January 20th or 21st, 2012, they found her at the base of Saint-Exupéry's east face. She'd fallen approximately 450 meters, about 1,500 feet down the mountain. Here's what rescuers and medical experts believe happened, based on the evidence, and honestly, it's almost harder to hear than if she'd just never woken up. Sometime after Cian left on the night of January 15th, maybe hours later, maybe the next day, Carlyle regained consciousness. But she wasn't okay. According to the official accident report published by Alpinist magazine, she had suffered apparent skull fractures from the rockfall impact. She'd been exposed to sub-zero temperatures at 2,500 meters for hours, possibly days. She was severely hypothermic, confused, disoriented, likely suffering from cerebral trauma. And in that confused state, she unclipped herself from the anchor that was keeping her safe, the anchor that Cian had secured her to with fixed ropes before he went for help. She unclipped. Maybe she thought she needed to descend. Maybe she didn't know where she was. Maybe she was trying to find Cian. We'll never know what was going through her mind in those final moments. What we do know is that she walked away from that ledge and fell 450 meters down the east face. Joss Levine, a professional mountain guide from the Bow Valley, who had been a close friend of Carlyle's, flew to Patagonia when he heard what happened. He was the one who found her body at the base of the mountain. He gave her a mountain burial there at the foot of Aguja Saint-Exupéry. The Canadian and international climbing communities were shattered. Sharon Wood, Carlyle's mentor and the legendary first North American woman on Everest, said, "This one hit different. We've had a lot of bad news now in this game," she told reporters, but this one was another degree of intensity. Because here's the thing that makes Carlyle's story so haunting. She didn't make a mistake. She didn't push too hard. She didn't ignore warning signs. She didn't take an unnecessary risk. She was on a warm-up climb, for crying out loud, a 13-pitch, 5.11 route that was well within her abilities. She was doing everything right. The rock that hit her, according to the accident analysis, it wasn't dislodged by another climber. It was just a natural rockfall. The freeze-thaw cycle that happens every single day in Patagonia. Daytime temperatures melt ice in the cracks and nighttime temperatures refreeze it, expanding and loosening the rock. Gravity did the rest. Wrong place, wrong time, 1 second. And you know what's really sobering? As documented in climbing accident reports, this wasn't even unusual for Patagonia. Just 2 years later, in 2014, American climber Chad Kellogg died the exact same way, struck by rockfall while descending from Fitzroy. In January 2023, 2 experienced Basque climbers were killed by an avalanche on the descent from Fitzroy. The mountains there are constantly moving, constantly shifting, constantly falling apart, and no amount of skill or experience can protect you from that. Carlyle's story isn't about recklessness. It's not a cautionary tale about pushing too hard or ignoring your limits. It's about something much harder to accept, that sometimes the mountains just decide. You can be strong, you can be experienced, you can be careful, prepared, smart about every decision you make, and still, in 1 second, everything can change. Kelly Cordes, an American alpinist who wrote about Patagonia in his book The Tower, A Chronicle of Climbing and Controversy on Cerro Torre, put it this way: the mountains aren't cruel, they're indifferent. Indifferent, that might be the scariest word in climbing, because cruelty you can understand, you can fight against it, but indifference, there's nothing to fight. The mountain doesn't care about your dreams, your plans, your loved ones waiting for you at home. Bryn Carlyle Norman was 29 years old when she was injured on January 15, 2012. Her body was later found that week at the base of Aguja Saint-Exupéry. She was a beloved friend to Canmore's tight-knit climbing community. She'd survived losing both her parents to outdoor accidents by the age of 11. She'd turned that tragedy into strength, into a deep love for wild places. As documented by those who know her best, Carlyle was extremely happy that day in Patagonia. She found great solace in wild places. She died on the mountains she loved. And I think she'd want us to remember that part too, not just the tragedy, but the joy. The fact that she chose to live fully, to chase beauty even when she knew the risks, to climb even though she'd already lost so much to the mountains. 1 second changed everything, but the 29 years before that second, those mattered too. A bright spark of light who found peace in the mountains right up until the end.